Greetings of the day, scholars. Today we will discuss the political topics on the subject Reinventing Deliberative Oratory. Dear scholars, this area for deliberations is very important, precisely for the reasons that the deliberations are either in the council or in the assemblies. When these are discussed in the council, these comes from the expert in the form of advice. So long as assemblies are concerned, these are put before the present members of the house. In this regard, it is very important to know the specific area regarding the general knowledge which is in knowledge of the most of the audiences. Otherwise, to influence the audience is a very difficult task. Therefore, in this series, we may discuss these political subjects which I hope you have the common idea about the subject. In brief, I may tell you the subjects. Number 1, finances. Number 2, war and peace. Number 3, national defense. Number 4, imports and exports. And number 5, framing of laws. Briefly, we have touched and discussed these in my previous lectures. Today, I may highlight some more points specifically. Dear scholars, when we talk of finances, in this regard, we should have the knowledge of the revenues of the state, so that if any have been left out, they may be added, and if any are rather small, they may be increased, and all the expenses of the city as, and so that if any is not worthwhile, it may be eliminated, and if any is too great, it may be reduced. For people become richer not only by adding to what they have, but by cutting down expenses. It is not only possible to get an overall view of these matters from experience in the affairs of one's own city, but it is necessary also, or be willing to do research about what has been discovered elsewhere in regard to deliberation about these things. meaning thereby that while deliberating on the subject of finances, it refers to the revenues and the expenditure, because finance is the lifeline of any state to run the administration and to take care of the citizens and people for their development. Dear friends, in the series of topics, now we may discuss about the war and peace. In this regard, it is necessary to know the power of the city, both how great it is already and how great it is capable of becoming, and what form the existing power takes, and what else might be added, and further what wars it has waged, and how it is necessary to know these things, not only about one's native city, but about neighboring cities, meaning thereby that the orator must have a knowledge about the neighborhood countries and their comparison with the defense mechanism. In this regard, it is also important that when the neighbor country is found strong enough, he must have the policy of peace toward the stronger, and that the decision of war with the weaker may be one's own. Their forces also, whether they are like or unlike those of one's own city. For it is possible in this respect as well to be superior to superior or inferior. Additionally, it is necessary to have observed not only the wars of one's own city, but those of others in terms of their results. Dear, keeping in view this in mind, one should have a good knowledge about all these war and peace mechanisms. Now, I may further proceed to explain that in regard to foods, what expenditure is adequate for the city, and what kinds are on hand, and what can be imported, and what items need to be exported, and what imported, in order that contracts and treaties may be made with appropriate parties. It is necessary to keep the citizens constantly free from complaints from two foreign groups, those that are stronger and those that are useful for commerce. This is very important for the import and export. With regard to the area of security of the state, it is necessary to observe all these things, but not least to be knowledgeable about legislation for the safety of the city in its laws. So, it is necessary to know how many forms of constitution there are and what is conducive to each and by what each is naturally prone to be corrupted. Both forces characteristic of that constitution and those that are opposed to it different. In this regard, the study of constitution I have already explained in details in my previous lecture. Dear scholars, further proceeding in this regard, I may highlight that all the others are destroyed by loosening or tightening their basic principle of governance with regard to the characteristic forces of corruption. For example, democracy not only becomes weaker when its principle of equality is relaxed, so that finally it leads to oligarchy, but also if the principle is too rigidly applied. Dear friends, precisely for the reason in this regard, we can say that whenever any loose command is given or the citizens are governed, there is every likelihood of corruption which make the country weak. Therefore, it must be kept in mind that no sort of corruption or leniency be considered against the forces. These are most important subjects on which someone who is going to give counsel ought to have propositions. Dear friends, I hope that I have met the subject one by one in detail. So long as the framing of legislation is concerned, it is very important, first of all, to see that what type of constitution in the state is applicable and in accordance with the laws should be framed, so that no one can be allowed to deteriorate peace of the state. Thank you.